Hello everyone, I'm Vivi and welcome to the history of Nina Cortex. Nina has made a few appearances throughout the franchise, from being playable to having some actual roles to play. Her first appearance happened in Crash Bandicoot Purple, Ripto's Rampage. Cortex recruited her in order to help him capture Coco and the Professor. She chases after Crash, but then Spyro entraps her in a cage. It appears she's the youngest in this version of the game, the way she speaks to Spyro, Purple Puppy. Now that gives off the impression that she adores cute-looking animals. I mean, if you look at Spyro, isn't he adorable? I mean, come on. Next we got Twinsanity. The manual which comes with the game shares a bit of her background character. Nina is Dr. Cortex's beloved niece. When she began to show disturbing signs of a kind heart, Dr. Cortex made a few modifications and sent her to study at the Academy of Evil. Nina still has warm feelings for cute animals, but now they avoid her hugs for fear of being crushed by her spring-loaded, steel trap hands. Now she's skipping school to lend her uncle a bionic hand against the evil twins. Okay, so Cortex didn't like the fact that she was too nice, so he decides to send her off to the Academy of Evil, a school which Cortex had also attended. Now the continuity of the series is debatable. Why do I say this? Well, the Crash Bandicoot files, or what people like to call it, the Crash Bandicoot Bible, well, it states that Cortex attended a local high school at the age of 6. Now some of you might say, but is that history of Cortex still relevant? I'd say, yeah, why not? Because look, recently an interview happened with Jason Rubin, ex-founder of Naughty Dog, who used to work on Crash Bandicoot back in the day. And he still brought up something about Cortex. And you'll understand later what I mean by this. An orphan at a tender age, Neo sought refuge in an abandoned bean factory in the nearby town of Sunnyvale, subsisting on a diet of canned beans and rainwater. Determined to get a good education, Neo enrolled at the local high school. Though he was only 6, he easily passed the entrance exams. Reading this part of his history, Twinsanity mentions that when he was 8 years old, he attended Madame Amberly's Academy of Evil. This was even stated by Cortex himself. By the looks of things, high school comes after elementary. But if we base our thoughts on the history written in the files, at 6 years old he attended high school, and yet when he was 8, it seemed like he was in elementary. Just looking at his physical traits, he looks very young. It shouldn't make sense if you understand where I'm going with this. If we create ourselves a headcanon, what is a headcanon? This is something we'd like to imagine in our heads. A story, something which we believe happened the way we think it did. So, Cortex, we'd like to believe attended his local high school first, despite the age requirements. Heck, he was 6 years old and he attended high school. I mean, come on. Cortex gets a pass in that territory, due to his smarts, alright? He then, out of curiosity, joins the Academy of Evil, because that's where his mind went as he grew older, you know, wanting to become evil, world domination. So the age difference would at least make sense. Anywho, that's just something I wanted to bring up. Back to Nina. She has a spring-loaded steel trap hand. Well, 2 of them, allowing her to punch and grapple. The Titan's animated short, titled Salon, seems to indicate that Nina can teleport. A scene in Twinsanity seems to depict that Neo installed these on Nina. You know, that alone, I'm surprised she never had a grudge against her uncle. Yeah, as stated before, Nina is apparently Cortex's niece. I'll dive a bit into that later on in the video. Now, the role she played in Twinsanity? Well, Cortex believed Nina had the brains on how to fix the Psychotron, a device which is capable of transporting objects and people to different dimensions. Now, after meeting her at the Academy, her pranking Cortex and revealing what she's learned, we get some gameplay segments, and eventually, we come to Cortex's ice lab. Nina gives the machine a good smack, and that's all it took. Once they arrive at the 10th dimension, evil Crash kidnaps Nina. She gets rescued by Cortex, eventually, then they deal with the evil twins, where she also faces their deathbot. As you may have realized, Nina was quiet in Twinsanity. Not mute, I mean at least in the later games, but we do hear her briefly at the end of Twinsanity. After the 2004 era, we enter Crash Tag Team Racing, released in 2005. Her along with Cortex and Engine at the beginning of the game, they try and take over Von Clutch's motor world, by basically winning ownership of the place as stated by Von Clutch himself. If, of course, they help him recover his power gems and black power gem, which gives him power to live. Gems serve as keys to different lands within the motor world. As for the purpose of those gems, it was always unknown. Like, we do find out that the culprit was Willy Wonka Cheeks, the mascot of the place. We never understood why he wanted those gems in the first place. Now Nina, in this game, she gets a part-time job handling the park's edible meats in order to purchase the Angsterator car. At one point, she begs Crash to help her get the job. Now in this game, she's still indifferent towards Crash, even tells him to find her keys she lost at a point. Now at the beginning of the game as well, they're chasing after their car. That look in her eyes, I mean, she just looks like someone whose purpose is to follow orders from her uncle. But that changes in Crash of the Titans, released in 2007. Uka Uka is tired of Cortex's failures. He replaces him with his niece. She takes over, forces Coco to build the Doominator, a giant-sized robot that looks like Cortex, with a purpose to destroy the Wampa Islands. Titans gives us the chance to see a bit more of her personality. She immediately comes off as a brat, someone who thinks they're entitled to everything. She doesn't say no to killing Crash. She herself even tells Uka to kill Crash Bandicoot, as if he's been the bane of her existence. Now when Crash finds Nina, she freaks out and says this is my robot and my right to choose. Okay, so you choose to kill Crash, but why? When you never much interacted with him your entire life. However, there's also a Nintendo DS version which changes the story a bit, in a way where she feels like a tool to Cortex. And the console version, she was making fun of her uncle, taking over his robot and all. But in the DS version, she temporarily teams up with Crash to get revenge on Cortex. See this difference in story already? I prefer the story in the DS version, cause Nina was made a bit more interesting. Nina appears as the second boss in the mobile version, side-scrolling game from 2007. Now we move on to 2008, Mind Over Mutant. As a punishment for what she did, despite Cortex being proud of her backstabbing nature, she's sent to the evil public school. Again, she's sent off to an evil school. At this point you wonder why? Is it because he wants his niece to get educated? Or is it his way of getting rid of her as nicely as possible? The thing is, the school seems to have a bunch of N's around, so I always wondered, why do we have N's around? Is it because of Nina being present? What's the deal with that? There's a big N right there standing out completely. Anywho, she does seem to hold a grudge against her uncle in this game. She was made fun of at school. When Aku and Crash visit her, at first she refuses to help the duo defeat Cortex. Heck, she blames Crash for ruining her life, and gets a big slap on the face. She mentions how she was happier at Madame Amberly's private school, how she felt like a queen, despite not really showing any sort of emotion in Twinsanity. Crash and Aku get so desperate, Nina wants them to kiss, and that was it. Priceless. This scene right here, it is priceless. She helped our duo, afterwards, to, locate Brio and Crunch after her science fair project. Next, Nina Cortex was a cut character in Crash Nitro Kart. Traveler's Tales wanted Nina to make her first debut in this game. There's even concept art of her. What's even cooler, check this out. A colored version exists. This was shared by writer-designer at Traveler's Tales, Paul Gardner, back in 2018. Vicarious Visions basically took over the project, and for unknown reasons, Nina was cut. Fast forward to 2019, Nina is introduced in Nitro-Fueled Spooky Grand Prix. Her personality portrayed in Nitro-Fueled reflects her attitude from Mutant, I'd say. What do you want from me? Leave me alone, I hate you. Some Easter eggs on the track itself, Nina's Nightmare, shows history of Amberly's Academy of Evil. Beanox is basically acknowledging the fact that she did attend that school. As for other installments, she did make, I guess, minor appearances with no special role, really, in Twinsanity 3D, a mobile version of the game. She has some lines of dialogue in this game. There's Crash Racing Mobile, Pretty much tag team racing, but on mobile. Nina is playable. Crash Bandicoot Party Game mobile. I was completely unaware of this one. Crash Nitro Kart 2 and Crash Bandicoot Nitro Kart 2. Also, Nina Cortex appears to be featured in Crash on the Run. Nina as a character, alright, here goes. She has lots of potential. Throughout the series, her personality felt very inconsistent. Does she like being bossy? Does she want to rule the world like her uncle? Does she simply want friends? Does she simply want status, be acknowledged? I mean, Titans and Mutant both were handled by Radical Entertainment. Same goes for Tag Team Racing. Twinsanity was handled by Traveler's Tales. Heck, our biggest question right now, when it comes to Nina. Throughout the series, she's portrayed as Cortex's niece. There's a scene in Twinsanity where Cortex almost spells out daughter instead of niece, but then he quickly switches to niece.
My daughter, niece! We must do something!
But in later games, they stuck with her being a niece to Cortex. Cortex being an uncle. That daughter line was actually a discrepancy by Traveler's Tales. Here's a quote I found over on Crash Mania. At this early stage, it was not clear whether she was going to be Neo's daughter or niece. Hence the deliberate discrepancies regarding her relation in Twinsanity. Her appearance was actually based slightly on one of the designers at Traveler's Tales Oxford. This may or may not be true, and she used to wear a white lab coat, the same as Neo. This was stated by SpaceCat, a nickname given to Geethweb, former concept artist at the company. After all, they do some fourth wall breaking in Twinsanity, like how they ran out of time for other dimensions.
Come now, as we explore a new dimension! It should have been 2 new dimensions, but we ran out of time.
So I wouldn't put it past them, this whole thing about discrepancy. Both Wrath of Cortex manual and Crash Bandicoot files mentioned that a freak accident happened, an explosion that killed his entire family. As for his history depicted in the files, he was born in a family full of clowns. He hated being a clown. Other children were taking accordion lessons and riding ponies while Neo was subjected to the torment of the seltzer bottle and the pie in the face. Not to mention the endless banana jokes. This torture abruptly ended when Cortex was 5, and his entire family was wiped out by a freak explosion of the circus's fireworks supply. This is a quote I always bring up, cause it's interesting. Some might believe Cortex set all of that in motion. Basically, the mass killing of his family because he was tired of being a clown. Regardless of the truth of who did it, Cortex having a niece means he has a sibling alive out there that survived the explosion. Like I said before, there was a recent interview by Jason Rubin, and he brought this part of his history up during the interview. So I'd like to believe that yes, Crash Bandicoot Files is still relevant. Now there is one thing that could tell us that Cortex wasn't behind the explosion, like it was simply an accident. 1. This bonus scene from the E3 demo of Twinsanity 2004. Cortex mentions his grandma while he's actually talking to his grandma.
Yes, Grandma, I'm eating properly. Yes, I've really got to go. Yes, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Kill her. Kill her.
Again, in Twinsanity, he mentions mother in this scene in Nina Cortex.
Ladies? Excuse me, madam. Are those real? Mother?
There's portraits of what seem to be Cortex's parents in Crash for It's About Time. Now, I'm not saying Twinsanity is part of the timeline, but going off what Paul Yan said, the co-studio head at Toys for Bob, you know, the thing about alternate dimensions, how the other games post Naughty Dog happened in other dimensions? Well, they could be acknowledging the fact that Cortex doesn't mind remembering his parents. If he killed his family, I don't think he'd want to remember them at all, unless he's dealing with something we're unaware of, like a split personality. He does have periods of depression according to the history in the files, and Crash 4, this exact scene here. There was even the scene in Crash 3 Warped in the ending where he looked all depressed. Say, we have portraits of his parents, right? Something other than clown suits. Well, the suit his father is wearing, D for dad, I guess you could argue. Look, just looking at these portraits, he hates remembering his parents as clowns. So instead of drawing them or having them drawn in clown suits, he remembers them in casual clothes. Well, looking at the mother, M for mother, it looks like she was a housekeeper as well. Anywho, let's not fry our heads over what they did other than being clowns. Look, if in the future, say Beanox, Vicarious Visions, or Toys for Bob, you know, all the people that got involved in a Crash Bandicoot project, if they decide to tackle a new story for Nina, I'm all for it. Niece or daughter? I take it they're gonna go with the idea that she is Cortex's niece. If that is true, then I wonder what they're gonna do about the whole, oh, sibling surviving that freak explosion thing. If Nina were Cortex's daughter, you're saying that Cortex got married? He has a wife somewhere, probably divorced her? Cortex, out of all people? Now look, with the theme of dimensional travel in Crash 4 by Toys for Bob, Nina could pop out of a quantum rift, let's say, and be like, hey. Some might say, but wait a minute, would Toys for Bob randomly throw in Nina Cortex? Maybe yes, maybe not. Heck, her track record shows that she was thrown in the franchise pretty randomly, with no much backstory to be completely frank. If Nina returns, I want her to be completely revamped. Don't make her Cortex 2.0. Give Nina her own thing. The series already hinted at her living fuzzy animals. Heck, make her a veterinary. Don't forget, Dingodile had a diner and it blew up in Crash 4. If Dingo can run a business, Nina can easily get a job. Nina attended school, albeit not her wanting to go there willingly. The thing is, make her special and really define her as a character. Don't go left and right, switching personalities, being confused as to what to do with her. Tell yourselves this, if Nina had never gone to the Academy of Evil, what would she be like? If Cortex was never involved in her life, where would she be? That's something the writing team will have to discuss. After all, Crash 4 does seem to have much more narrative than before, just by the looks of it. So yeah, with that being said guys, this is it for the video. If you have any questions, your own theories, please feel free to leave anything in the comments section below. And as always, I've been Vivi and thank you so much for watching.